Good afternoon, folks. Welcome to Visordown and welcome to the Triumph factory, where we are stood with the beautiful new Triumph Speed Triple 1200 RR or RR. Which one do you want us to call it? Is it a RR or is it an RR?
Whatever you like, sir.
We need to get this sorted out at the very beginning. I'm joined here by Miles Perkins, who I'm sure you'll all know from previous Visordown videos. And we're just going to have a little chat about this bike. I was on the WebEx for this the other day. We had a little online conference and talk about it. It looks completely different in the flesh.
All right.
And it doesn't matter how good and how high spec the pro images that you took of this bike were.
Yeah.
They kind of don't do it justice when you walk in and see it for the first time. That's one thing that I've noticed.
Certainly the colour.
Yes,
Yeah.
both very striking. That is my favourite, I've got to say. I am loving that white and the two-tone grey on there. So, I mean, just tell me very quickly, how did this project come about, if that's okay? I'm going off-piste from my questions already, but
okay.
How did this project come about? And
Okay, so last year, or the beginning of this year actually, we launched the RS, Speed Triple Generation, so what a big seismic step up in terms of power and performance. The RR had been in development through the timeline of the RS, so the plan all along was to create two flavours in the family. One with the Speed Triple RS, which is sort of bullseye on that naked sports performance bike, based on exactly what, of course, the Speed Triple's always been, which is a road-based, first and foremost, performance naked sports bike. And the thinking with the RR was following that great sort of British tradition of taking the latest and greatest of performance vehicles and then pushing to make an addition that brings more beauty, more performance. So the thinking with the RR was a little bit of a modern accent on the modern take on a cafe racer, but to add more specification and more performance, but absolutely to keep the crosshairs on road biased maximum riding opportunities. So something that wasn't track bike compromised for the road, but actually fully exploitable road performance. So with the fairing, you get more practicality. You know, it's a beautiful object, but also you're down in the bike a little bit more. The specifications are higher, so the electronic suspension, the tyres, and then with the big jump up of the RS in terms of overall performance and specification, that gives you basically two flavours to choose from: full-on naked sports or something new in terms of fared. And of course, track suitable. It's got a track mode, so it's spec for the track, but first and foremost a road bike.
So I'm noticing in everything that you've said, and this is another one off piece from my question, sorry about this, you've not referred to it yet as a sports bike, have you? And are you hesitant to call it a sports bike because of the kind of the image that conjures up in people's heads, or do you just, I mean, what's the reason behind not calling it?
Well, not to be too disingenuous, but for me it is a sports bike, but it's a sports bike that's orientated for performance sports riding on the road.
Right.
So the word, you know, if we put, you know, performance sports on the side of it, it's your knee jerk would be to associate that with track sports or racing. And you know, to me, you could also see this as a bit of a gentleman's racer. You know, it does have that track capability, but first and foremost, it's for the road. So we're not leading with a sports word because, you know, we don't want to confuse people or set it alongside those types of bikes, which actually, in road riding terms, we think probably have some limitations.
Yeah, I mean, on modern sports bikes, 200 bhp plus, you can't really scratch the surface on the public road anyway, because by the time you got to third gear, it's hello officer and bye-bye licence. So we've spoken a little about how it came together. I mean, it's a bit of a unique proposition in the market, isn't there? I mean, we're talking modern retro cafe racer with kind of the heart and dynamics of a sports bike. Do you see it as having any sort of natural rivals in the current motorcycle market, or?
Well, personally, I come in from the other perspective that I think the Speed Triple RS goes head to head with everything in that naked sports category. But I think every customer or rider that we've spoken to in that world, which is obviously we do at the start of any project, and over the course of a project as we're determining, you know, what people want, what people need, what people would love. I would see that all of the customers who would who would see that as appealing would have the benefit and have the appeal of this as well. So we actually think it's got an overlapping sort of appeal to anyone that would be looking in that naked sports category. Directly though, there are, I think, bikes that have the intent of motorcycle art. I'm not going to name them, but potentially you could say.
That's MV Augusta, by the way, that he's talking about.
But the performance on this is a significant level up. But you've got large capacity, it's 180 brake horsepower, but all of that tool starting on road bias, road-based opportunity to exploit that to the maximum. And there are other brands that that would have in their world probably a softer version of their full-on track orientated, whereas to me there's nothing soft about this.
No.
So I think it's in a bit of clean space in terms of direct comparison, but I think the appeal is actually, I would like to think, is quite broad.
And you were just talking then about when you spoke to riders before you started the project, those riders who were saying that we want the ultimate cafe racer, with the DNA in the heart of a speed triple, however they put that. What did they look like? Who were they? What was the sort of demographic?
Well, I think the conversations we do market research, but we also do conversations with our dealers and our dealer principals, and all of our we have operations all over the world with teams all over the world, and they have conversations with their customers, and we get together frequently as a team, and they get reviewed. And this is at Hinckley in our product planning and our design team. I think you've got constituent parts of what makes up the brief. So I could be pretty sure we weren't standing in front of customers saying, do you want a classic cafe racer with a speed triple engine? It's more along the lines of, well, what is it that you want to ride, and what are the hallmarks of what makes something great or really desirable? And in conversations around naked performance sports, always, and we'd see this on on the kind of comments on the videos that Visordown would put out, as well as other media, as well, fairings, higher levels of suspension, specification, adjustability, fully electronic adjustability, etc. So the feedback comes in on different dimensions, but I think one of the great things about Triumph is to taking that sort of ambitious leap in terms of adding more to the story by way of beauty or uniqueness or committedness. And for me, that's where the Bobber came from, that's where the Scrambler 1200 came from, that's where our rocket, latest generation rocket came from, which is to take those ambitions of customers, but to make that big leap in terms of, well, let's take all of that, but let's create something new that would have the opportunity to draw a new audience and create something new in the world.
Cool. It's quite nice that you mentioned the Bobber and the Rocket there, because before those bikes came along and filled that space, there really wasn't anything else out there that could function in that way, or that was like that. There wasn't another Bobber really in the marketplace.
But you could see that customers were making them. You could see that people were taking T120s and stripping them back and making cafe racers, and people were constantly, even though the Rocket had come out in Europe, had ceased to be able, the Euro 4 at the time specification had made it a question as to what we would do to develop that. But the indications of what people would want and what they would do themselves pretty much laid the path for the Bobber, and certainly the Scrambler 1200 in terms of scramblers that can scramble. So those leaps aren't so much just a pure sort of bet or an imagination from Triumph. It all comes from collaborative conversation.
Cool. So was it a collaborative conversation around the colours? Because I'm looking at two colours, and for a long time there isn't a black option. So can you explain that? I mean,
there is a black option, because of course in the family you have the RS, and the RS has a black option, and that is a really strong seller. But in terms of these two, I think we're listening, and we're listening to customers who are looking for not so much brighter, but always more character and always more personality. And I think these are incredibly appropriate. For me, the white racing Triumph colour scheme is quite a classic, historic, but a very modern thing. But the red hopper in the light, wow, it's
definitely
alive.
striking.
Yeah.
So are we going to see a try factory customs, a TFC version of this in the upcoming future, or are you going to no comment that one? And
I'm going to no comment that one. We've got plenty of things in plan, and my no comment doesn't mean yes, but I'm not going to tell you. It's absolutely, we're open to all opportunities and we're listening. I
mean, just to plant the seed,
would you like one?
A full carbon fairing and seat unit on that would look absolutely spanking. So
right,
yeah,
then.
put me down.
We'll call it the Toad Special.
Put me down for a pre-order. And while we're on the subject of pre-orders, if people watching this video now like the look of this, how can they go about putting their name on a list? Just speak to a local dealer, or
absolutely, contact your local dealer, get your name down. I assume they'd look for a deposit. And also, if you want to get on one, get your name down early for test rides. Talk to your dealer, email your dealer, get on the website.
Okay. So these two bikes here are £17,950, and the Red Hopper edition is 250 quid extra.
That's right. The colour scheme lifts a little bit.
Okay, cool. And these are going to be landing in dealers. When do you think people will be able to actually go to their local dealer, swing a leg over one, test ride it, and then? January time in the UK. So there you go. It is going to be landing in dealers in January. We are hopefully going to be riding this before the end of the year on a press launch. Do you think?
Depending on how the world turns, our plan is to go to the incredible Ascari circuit and get these bikes on the track, but also more importantly, getting them on the road and getting an opportunity to ride them at their best in both circumstances.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure you are too. Miles, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us today. And thanks for watching, folks. I've been Toad on Visordown.